the less you ask something like your hand to do, for example, the less it will do. Seems kind of self-evident, I know. Welcome to episode 34 in my series, How I Conquered Stroke. Remember that anything that increases mobility and exercise when you have had a stroke is good for you and it's good for your overall improvement. So the subject of this video has much wider implications than it does for your hand only. I'm not just talking about penmanship and writing and regaining that ability, but I noticed that so many people comment they're stuck in a doctor's office and they don't know what to do when they're confronted with forms to fill out. So anyway, I'm trying to adjust that here. This is a subject that addresses the fine motor skills that puts the hand, in this case, in a better position to hold a tool or cook or drive a car safely, etc., etc. It applies to so many things. You definitely are going to face situations like filling out the forms in a post office, doctor's office, forms in the dentist's office, where they hand you one of those pads and you're seated in a chair with no arms and not certainly not a desk, and then expected to fill it out. Even the eye doctor, heck, even filling out a personal check for someone. It is one of the many things that the stroke wiped out for most of us, and that you want to get back enough to function again. By the way, please like and subscribe to this channel so that you can easily use the subscription to access the library of videos I've collected addressing addressing issues that arise after you have had a stroke. And the gamut runs from physical to mental to a relationship to all kinds of things. So please like and subscribe. Aside from the mental confusion that the stroke causes, whereby, for instance, you're writing something, when you regain that ability and suddenly you're stuck because you're thinking your hand is immobile because you're trying to remember what you were going to write, and you're mid-word, and that's the kind of confusion. But anyway, I'll deal with that separately. I'm focusing in this video on the loss of the physical skill of writing. I remembered learning to write as a child in the first grade and was taught penmanship as something of importance and something we were graded on. I, as most American children, learned something called the Palmer method. And those little ink pots and fountain pens were not the greatest memories for me. Yes, it was possible to get an F. I didn't, but they should have given me an F. I was not that good a penman, but I wrote clearly enough and always passed the class. Now, as I advanced through my education, I learned to write quicker and sloppier, but quicker and quicker to keep up with note-taking in college lectures. Then the stroke. I was not able to move the right side of my body, let alone my arm or my hand or a pen. The therapist suggested my learning to write again with my left hand because I had use of my left hand. My left hand was not my writing hand. I was not laying out a Da Vinci, so I was not, ambidextrous, but I did it as a stopgap measure until I was able to try to write again with my right also. I tried that running with the left hand for 2 months, 3 months. All the while, again, I said, never ceasing to try with my right. I was, as I said, super conscious of wanting to get normal again and not making my stroke visible even to a casual observer by letting one side atrophy from inactivity. The more I didn't let it atrophy, the more I attempted to get it going again, the more it showed improvement. Very slow, painfully slow, but it showed improvement. The less you ask something like your hand to do, for example, the less it will do. Seems kind of self-evident, I know. I didn't want people at a glance. Look at me. Size me up before a word is spoken and judging me just because I had a limb hanging useless by my side, which means, hey, this guy had a stroke. So for the first year, I worked towards coming to a solution. Remember my description in the past video of my feeling my right hand not only being numb, which still is like slightly, but also like that mechanical arcade game where to pick up a toy, you have to try to drop it on a dump truck. Super clumsy and inexact. That's how my hand felt. Maybe you're not old enough to have been to an arcade. Anyway, so my immediate solution when I was in, for example, a doctor's office in that first year, faced with paperwork that had to be filled out by hand, was, excuse me, I had a stroke. So could you please help me fill out these forms? If it was a signature only, I could do that with my left hand, very slowly, I might add, but I could still do it. 6 months into therapy, they suggested using a big pen, very big pen, and with a counterweight, or a pencil for the same thing, a specially designed large pencil with something on the back. But anyway, the larger the better for the grip. One thing you will realize, that the stroke has weakened those fingers and you have to control things. You lost that ability to finally control things. Using that big pen allowed me to control the pen better than before. The smaller the object, and the more strength the fingers have to control it and to make these small, fine movements that writing it represents. And if you're writing on an uneven surface, think of that lack of control in the following analogy. The beginning skater is all over. If you've ever skated or seen it on ice, or you in cartoons you've seen that. They're not fine movements. And they're different entirely from the triple axels of a professional skater. In writing, that bad ice, or the equivalent of bad ice, might be a crease in an envelope that causes you to lose control. Here are the good practices I followed. Find a large, level surface to write on, and sufficiently large that you have somewhere to rest your elbow. By that way, you control the instrument slightly better. 2, get a sufficiently wide circumference or fat pen at first. So definitely not this style. This is better. But I'm talking about something like this or bigger, so that you can grip it better. I can't grip this kind of pen. I still find narrow, thin pens to give me the biggest trouble, or the worst trouble. You are writing, for instance, the address on an envelope, and you hit that portion that is irregular due to, say, like the folding seal on the back with glue on it, and it seemed like you hit a pothole. In the old days, you just wrote over because you had this strength in the fingers to control the pen to get over that hump, but not now. 3, it is easier to control a bold writing point than a medium or a fine. A bold point or a very wide writing pen is easiest, again, for me, and it forces me to write a little larger because I cannot control it so well that the letters are not running into each other and becoming illegible. The wider, the easier. Remember, as you move from fine to bold, you are laying down a wider swath of ink on the paper. The wider, the easier. Yet sloppier, the line of. So, like a paintbrush. Fine for fine work, and the wider the paintbrush, the easier it is to move along, but the sloppier the line of paint becomes. I used to write small and fast, so I was in that sort of trouble. I didn't have a beautiful handwriting to make it slightly bad. I had a bad line writing to make it worse. 4, pencils are relatively effortless if the graphite or lead is thick enough that you do not get stuck in writing because you don't have the strength that carry the pencil smoothly over paper. You become super aware that you are not writing on glass, and the more texture the surface has, the more likely the stroke survivor will get hung up in writing on it. 5, Similarly for pens, I avoid fine tips for similar reasons. I use ballpen points for checks, by the way, where I have to press down for the second copy on that sort of carbon paper material they use as a backer. Otherwise, I normally use a bold gel pen as my go-to writing instrument. And for fun comparison, here is an example from the 70s on a postcard I wrote, so it's small writing, which a friend kept all these years and recently sent a picture of it to me. And here is my attempt to duplicate that first few words. So I made some progress. Did I make the right decision all those years ago to force myself to write again with my right arm or right hand, to include writing? Yes. I feel sort of normal again. I forced the stroke issues front and center and didn't hide from them. As much as I work to hide the severity of my stroke from colleagues and friends, I wanted to and did rejoin the human community once my stroke was not so evident that you could see the symptoms before you really met the person. And integral to that is getting back some sort of use to the right side of the body. In my case, you might have a different problem, but the sentiment is the same. And I might have gotten a C for penmanship. With that, I'll leave you with the message. Don't give in to stroke. Thank you very much.